Statement made. More Leinster-Taiment is on the way. Rieko Ioane joining on a 6-month sabbatical to take over from Jordie Barrett, who is currently at the province. So Leinster have got Beavis, and now they want Butthead, which is possibly how Jonny Sexton refers to Rieko Ioane. And that just adds another interesting little subplot. But this throws up loads and loads of talking points. How much does this show the strength of Leinster compared to other URC and Champions Cup sides? Is this a trend that we're going to start to see more and more of, with New Zealanders and maybe players from other Southern Hemisphere nations heading to Europe rather than Japan, which has happened in the case of the last, well, Jordie Barrett and now Rieko Ioane? What do the other provinces in Ireland think of this particular signing compared to what they are allowed or not allowed to do by the IRFU? And what were the other options that Leinster had in terms of signings? There were rumours swirling around. Have they got the right man? What does this mean for the players at Leinster? All talking points that I'm going to cover on this video. So please get stuck in the comments down below. I'll be there with you. I'm Tim, and this is Egg Chasers. And you might be able to tell from my eyes, still slightly jet lagged from the travel back from California. But I'll tell you what, I was excited when I saw this story when I woke up this morning, rubbed my eyes. Hold on, is it April the 1st? No, this is legit. And you could argue this is a clear winner in the Jonny Sexton versus Rieko Ioane beef. Obviously, Jonny Sexton opened up in his autobiography about the taunting, the words that were exchanged following the Rugby World Cup quarter-final. Jonny Sexton had his say in his autobiography. Rieko Ioane had his say back on social media. And then it looked like he had the last laugh when he led the haka, and then New Zealand had a beatdown of Ireland in Dublin in what was a statement performance. But maybe this is the last laugh. Or alternatively, another positive way of looking at it is the beef is gone now, and the dynasty which Jonny Sexton helped to build is now going to be carried on by his maybe enemy now come friend, Rieko Ioane. We'll wait and see about that one, but it's an interesting little angle, and I can't wait to see what Jonny Sexton's got to say. I'm sure he'll actually be pretty happy and excited to see Rieko Ioane wearing the blue of Leinster. I'd certainly be excited if I were a Leinster fan. As I say, more Leinster-Taiment on the way. They've got Jordie. Well, that's the one way that Jonny Sexton could, if he does still have an issue, could answer it, is by coming back to life like the Undertaker, getting back into the Leinster team, nudging out Sam Prendergast again, getting the 10 jersey, and then just not passing to Rieko Ioane. But like I say, they've got Jordie Barrett currently, and like that scene from Predator, it's like tagging in Jordie Barrett to Rieko Ioane. Happy days. Although you could argue this is actually, even on an even bigger picture, a lovely relationship blossoming between Leinster and New Zealand. Who out of the two of those parties would you say gets the better deal? I actually think it's pretty equitable. Obviously, Leinster are getting a world-class talent. Someone who can play in multiple positions, which is really useful. At the prime of their career, Rieko Ioane is what, 27, 28? So, yeah, they're getting an absolute elite top star, which will sprinkle a little bit of stardust onto what is already an absolutely stacked squad. And New Zealand, well, they get to send one of their players away to earn a bunch of cash, which is part of the sabbatical. I mean, Rieko Ioane, just like Jordie Barrett, has earned the right to go and earn his corn and to have an experience. But crucially, by sending a player to Leinster, they are going to get a player that comes back having played the highest level of club rugby that you can play, surrounded by international talent, and this is the crucial part from a New Zealand point of view, on why if I was Scott Robertson I would be very, very happy about this move. He's not going to get overplayed. Jordie Barrett has played 9 times for Leinster so far. 9 times, that's it. I'll come on to the stats with that a little bit more, but yeah, let me know what you think. I would say, firstly, I think Leinster are doing with they're doing their foreign signings how foreign signings should be done. First and foremost, RG Snyman, Jordie Barrett this season, Rabah Slimani, few players, but very, very high quality ones. And that's the way that I would do foreign signings. Supplement your homegrown squad with absolute top tier level players. And they've done that with the players that they have. When I compare that to like the Premiership, for example, I think there's too many players in the Premiership who are average quality, non-English, which I don't think helps the national team. I think it blocks the pathway for players coming through. And I've talked before about previously, and unfortunately the picture is changing there, but the number of foreign players who are in the 12 jersey in the Premiership when England have a clear issue in the inside centre jersey. And it's been really, really frustrating to watch. Lots and lots of players. Now, some of those players are very, very high quality. Andre Esterhuizen at Harlequins was, one of the best in that position in the world. But there were too many players that were in and were not of that calibre, were not that level. And I just think that blocks the pathway. I think Leinster are doing it the right way. What about the young players coming through at Leinster? I can imagine one of the suggested criticisms might be this is going to block the pathway for, well, Rieko Ioane can play on the wing. So maybe for Tommy O'Brien, who is just coming through and establishing himself fully after a bunch of injuries into the Leinster team and doing really very well. And international honours could be around the corner. You've got Jamie Osborne, who plays centre, wing, fullback. So Rieko Ioane could be parking his tanks on Jimmy Osborne's lawn. You've got Jimmy O'Brien. You've got Kieran Frawley. All players that could be affected. But as I mentioned, I don't think it's an issue because, as I say, Jordie Barrett has played 9 matches for Leinster so far. Leinster have had 19 games so far this season. So Jordie Barrett has actually played in less than half of the games. And of those 9 games that Jordie Barrett has played, he's only played in 3 URC matches. He's played all 6 Champions Cup games, but he's only played 3 URC matches because Leinster do not need these calibre of players for URC games. They're going to beat the Dragons or Scarlets or Zebre or the South African teams when they travel to Ireland. They're going to beat them for the most part. Have they lost 1 game all season? And they're at the top of the URC log comfortably, at a canter. And they're always going to be like that because Leinster have the most incredible squad. I think it's 65 players in their squad. 32 of them are full internationals. I mean, other teams cannot match those resources. It's phenomenal. Most of those players homegrown, but Leinster don't need Jordie Barrett to finish top of the URC. They need him for the money matches when they win titles. So that they need him for the playoff games and for the Champions Cup. And the way the Champions Cup format is currently, they don't really need him for the pool games in the Champions Cup because you'll get to the knockouts even without winning all your games, and Leinster's squad is that strong. So really, the games we have from now is why Jordie Barrett was signed. Leinster would have been in exactly the same position in all their competitions, even if Jordie Barrett only joined them now. And that's a great thing from Jordie Barrett, from New Zealand's point of view, because they know that their players aren't going to go out there and get flogged. And equally for Leinster fans, they know Tommy O'Brien, Kieran Frawley, Jamie Osborne, Jimmy O'Brien, they're all going to get plenty of rugby. Nothing to worry about there. Compare that to Blair Kinghorn, another player who is elite quality, like Jordie Barrett and like Rieko Ioane, someone who can play in multiple positions, is a top-tier level talent. He has played, compare it to Jordie Barrett, who's played 9 games for Leinster and 3 for New Zealand, so that's 12 games. Blair Kinghorn, by comparison, has played 25. He's played in 25 games. That's Scotland, Six Nations, and that's Toulouse. He's played more than double the games of Jordie Barrett. And that is why it's uniquely Leinster as a destination for these players is a really, really good one. I don't think Jordie Barrett or any other New Zealand player will end up joining France, a team in France, because the quality of rugby would be just as high and on a week-to-week basis would be higher with the teams you play with and against. But you would get flogged by comparison because the games come thick and fast. And every game really, really matters in a way that it doesn't in the URC from a Leinster perspective. So that's why I don't think this is going to become a big trend. I don't think you're going to see loads of New Zealanders going to Premiership clubs or French clubs. I think they might just go to Leinster and maybe one a year, and it's quite a good little deal. And it makes sense. Because like I say, Jordie Barrett's not going to play that many games. Rieko Ioane's not going to play that many games. He'll go back to New Zealand with a great experience, with money in his bank and feeling relatively fresh. Just like the South African players have all been going from France and England over to Japan, which is where a lot of New Zealand players usually go, where Rieko Ioane's brother has gone. But in Japan, it's a very short season, relatively light workload, and you get paid well. So that makes sense. So I don't see there's going to be any major change there. What about other players that Leinster could have had? We heard about Damien Willems rumoured. I would have loved to have seen that. Again, a player like Jordie Barrett who can slot in multiple positions in the back line, even more versatile than Rieko Ioane is. Damien Willems, his injury issues, has that played into it? Stormers with Sasha Feinberg-Ngomazulu and Marnie Libok could have afforded Damien Willems to have gone off for a bit to Leinster. Maybe the fact he would have been playing in the URC against his old team is part of the reason why South Africa or the Stormers or Damien Willems himself wouldn't have wanted to have gone. But that would have been very cool as well. But there's time. Damien Willems is still young. Maybe he'll get his turn. But it definitely is showing a bit of a flex from Leinster, just the strength that they have, that they can just cherry pick, well, and put the cherry on top of the icing, on top of what is already a pretty tasty cake. And in a British and Irish Lions year, this is even more useful because so many of those Ireland players are going to be heading off to Australia in the summer. And, well, that's just extra resources to make sure their workloads aren't overdone as well. So I can see the gap widening, if anything, between Leinster and the rest in the URC and in the case of many of the teams, except those French giants in the Champions Cup. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm looking forward to seeing the first Jonny Sexton interview since this announcement as well. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.